See you on a Monday, 5 game slate. I'm here with Adam, Ship My Money, Share. We're going to take a look at some lineup study from Saturday, actually, where Adam had a pretty good showing, and then talk through this 5 game slate. Adam, how's it going? How's the weekend?
Pretty good. Weekend DFS wise went, kind of mediocre as usual, but it was a nice, relaxing week. That was yours.
Yeah, good. Same here. I actually got kind of crushed in DFS on the weekend, specifically yesterday.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
yeah. Did you said yesterday was bad for you too? Yeah. Um, Man, you're cutting out a little bit still, but I think you keep coming back and then you're cutting out and then you're coming right back. But I, I don't know. I think this has happened before, so we'll just keep going. I'm gonna drop the link in chat here, and then we will talk about lineup study, which you guys can have access to with the FC Pro add-on, which you can buy directly through us. Just go to the Osmo Plus tab on the homepage of osmo.com, and you see there's a little bit of some newer designs there, so kind of cool there. All right, so I've got your tournament pulled up. It is the MLB 200K bat flip, 50K to first. This was on Saturday. If anybody wants to follow along with lineup study, see some familiar names up at the top. Chipotle Addict, DFS Teams, Drew B from Daily Roto, and then, of course, Adam, Ship My Money. So you got eighth in this tournament, but I want to talk about this was an 8 game slate, and you said you were going to do it in chat, and you did do it, and you ended up doing it. You went 100% on a guy making his MLB debut. Is that right?
Yeah, Brendan McKay for Tampa. I think he was the most popular pitcher on the slate, but yeah, I ended up with 100% just because pitching on the slate in general was. I had McKay projected for the most raw points out of any of the pitchers. He was 7,600. It was in Tampa. It was a good pitcher's umpire. He was facing Texas. It was pretty much like any data point you wanted to look at was really good for him. The only way that it really goes poorly is just variance in baseball, but that obviously the case with anyone. So it was a spot where I felt really comfortable just getting close to or in my case actually 100% of him, and then just knowing that that's going to put me at like double the field and moving on from there.
Yeah, so besides that, I mean, you were spread out hitting wise. Nelson Cruz 36%, and then the rest of your exposures were um, pretty much spread out entirely. Only one other guy above 30%. Um, do you know what ended up being the top stack in this? Let's see what won this.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
had two double dogs, right?
yeah, Kepler and Cruz. Who Cruz was my highest owned hitter, and I think Kepler was second or third highest. I had like 28% Kepler if I remember right. So that worked out really well.
Yeah. All right, so Snow Scope. Oh, Renato Nunez kind of vaulted
Yeah,
this guy to the top. 38. Did he have a double dong this game?
yeah. He homered off of a pitcher, and then he homered off of a second baseman.
That's always a fun one. Yeah, it looks like you were in contention though. How many line you cashed 56 out of 150? I saw yesterday. I was looking at Alex's lineups from yesterday in the $10, and he cashed 60 lineups out of 150 and like lost over $100 out of his 1,500. It's just
Yeah,
ridiculous. So we
yeah. The
talked
payout
about,
structures are a little frustrating.
and it was even good yesterday. So I entered that one yesterday, just got walloped. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're not playing for the cash. You got to play for the win, especially in these large field tournaments with all these really good players just scattered all over the place. Um, Anything else interesting you saw in this tournament?
It was one that. So I mean, Minnesota was like the stack you needed. Also, Baltimore that day. It was one of the days that they scored like 13 runs. So it's I guess just kind of an example of even the really low upside stacks. If you're playing 150 lineups, getting at least a little bit of exposure to those guys, clearly pays off. I think I had like 3%, 3 or 4% Nunez, but that's still like double the field, and he ended up being, in my best lineup. I was in contention to where like a run would have jumped me to like second, I think. So, just having even a little bit of exposure to some really really low owned teams certainly gives you a little bit more upside.
Yeah, that's something I've been struggling with. I'm trying to master kind of my process, and I keep getting a lot of the same teams over and over with the same team. So, like, I might have a ton of the twin stack, but if my secondary stack goes off that I have with that same stack 4 or 5 times, I'm in a really good spot. But if it doesn't, I'm kind of missing out on some of these like Baltimore teams and like Miami mini stacks that we've seen that have done okay, but yeah, just prioritizing the bats can be tricky sometimes if you're not paying attention to your exposures. And I think that's what my major downfall was yesterday, but it looks like you did a really good job of that. So
Yeah,
that's
that's something that I was specifically changed some stuff over the weekend in my process to try and get more of that because I felt like I had noticed that like on good days, when I'm really it does well, obviously it's a good day, but you still end up with just like so many of your teams competing with each other.
mhm.
And tournaments are still so top heavy where like if you have, an eighth, a 15th, a 17th, some money with nothing special. So I've been trying to get a little bit more spread out amongst my stacks because, if I have 60% of a hitter and homers, that's great, but that's still a lot of hitters I'm not getting to that could be the highest score.
Yeah, exactly right. So I just seen this whole weekend. I was basically like I was playing LA, I was playing some Colorado, and then like all the good teams like the Yankees and the Braves, but I was just missing out on exposures, even like 5%, 10%, something like that to these lower projected stacks, but stacks that do make unique lineup construction. So something
I think the slate size makes a difference too. Like I was thinking about it on that most recent four slate where I think 6 games and the Dodgers, sucked, but a ton of them. I was kind of looking at it. I was like, did I really want, 50, 60% of all these Dodgers bats when they were 20% owned anyway? But then you look at, other teams and they had guys that were 15% owned. So I think on the smaller slates, I'm more okay with just getting like a lot of one or two teams because you're not really getting really low owned teams anyway. But once you start getting to like the 8, 10, 15 gamers, you start to be able to get some teams that are like 3, 4% owned.
right, exactly. So we're gonna have concentrated ownership in this slate. We'll try to mention. I see some people talking about MME. That's all Osmo is about. Talking about all of us, but some of us do play some cash. So we'll try to mention some obvious cash values. And if you're looking for more of that kind of stuff, we have that in the cheat sheets. The deeper dive, Lofty will be writing that today. He'll be back from FSGA. So he'll be writing that for the 5-game slate if you're looking for more cash type plays. Before we move on, just want to talk about Yahoo. If you are playing low stakes, if you're trying to increase your profits and you got a little bit of extra time to enter some lineups in on Yahoo, you should be doing that. They have a 12% management fee compared to 16% that you're seeing on some other sites. They still have the rake-free tournament, management-free tournament going on right now. $3 entry fee, top 300 places paid, so that's 20% exactly of the field paid. Again, no management fee, and it's not the biggest tournament in the world, but you're not going to find a better one. So if you're playing over $30 a day, your first 30 should be in that tournament. If you're multi-entering, or if you're just playing one lineup, $3, and just a really, really nice tournament to play in, and you're not going to be able to go up against some of the sharks that you're seeing in all of these big tournaments where you recognize every other name at the top. All right, and then of course you can access lineup study if you have FC Pro through us. All right, let's go to this 5-game slate. We'll start off with the Cubs and the Pirates. Looks like a 5 implied total for the Cubs, 4.6 for the Pirates. We're going to skip over that early game. You're not playing that, right?
No.
Okay, didn't think so. Me either. So we'll talk about that in chat if anybody's got some showdown takes. Premium Slack is where it's at for that. Adbert Alzolay going up against Trevor Williams. We have, again, a 5 implied total for the Cubs, 4.6 for the Pirates. All right, so Alzolay came on hot to the scene. I remember the only time I've played him was a couple weeks ago when he came in as a reliever and Alex was on him and asked him to get added to Fantasy Cruncher, which was kind of funny, and it ended up doing really well in that limited time. So big strikeout pitcher going up against Pittsburgh. It's a tough strikeout matchup, but what do you see yourself doing with $6,400 Alzolay here, Adam?
Yeah, so he's kind of low in my baseline projections. I think that'll be something that I have to look into a little bit more because I know his minor league numbers are really, really good. 30+% strikeout percentage, low walk percentage, and he's been pretty impressive in his first 2 major league appearances, Atlanta and I don't remember who the other was against. good results in both. Facing a Pittsburgh team here that is difficult to strike out. They're the third lowest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching, but it's also a favorable park for pitchers. And most importantly, it's a really cheap price tag on a slate that has virtually no opportunity cost at pitchers. So he stands out as, I think, at the very least, one of the highest upside per dollar arms.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be the highest owned pitcher when I looked at this ownership this morning, which was already updated. Looks like Tom or someone got it out really early, so that's good for us, good to have for the show. He is not the highest owned pitcher right now.
Yarbrough?
It's not Yarbrough. It is Jeff Samardzija. So he is about a third of the ownership right now, Samardzija on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Alzolay he's just 3% right now. So not getting a ton of attention. That's a little bit puzzling to me just because of the high strikeout rate. Low price on both sites. Obviously more favorable on DraftKings and Yahoo, where he's only $28. So even though it is a tough matchup, I think he's probably going to be one of my higher exposed pitchers just because of the nature of the slate. It's really rough when you're looking for a quality SP1 or SP2 for that matter, and he's priced appropriately, I think, or even a little bit underpriced. Trevor Williams at 8,100 on the other side. Is he someone you have really any interest in against the Cubs, who have a 5 implied total?
No, I think he's got a couple of things working against him. For one, he's Trevor Williams, which is to say he's not a bad pitcher, but he's not a great DFS pitcher because he just doesn't strike guys out. And then on top of that, you're facing this Cubs offense, which is above average. It's not like it's a spot that you expect him to pick up extra strikeouts. So I don't really have interest in Williams. I think that there are better strikeout matchups for pitchers in his price range if you wanted to go that route. And then there's also, some cheaper arms that you can just kind of put into your lineup and hope that they don't kill you and you can get the bats that you want. So he doesn't really satisfy like either of the things I'm looking for in pitching today.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think it's just a little bit too expensive. Not much strikeout upside. He's an underdog right now. I'd rather just go to Alzolay with a bunch of lineups rather than play a bunch of Trevor Williams at 8,100. He's 72 on FanDuel. Maybe you could make a case for that. 32 on Yahoo. I think on DraftKings, that's probably his worst price if you're shopping around. So I'd just play him elsewhere if I was going to do that. How about bats here? We've got a 9.5 implied total, a little bit above that. I don't know that I'm looking at a ton of stacks for either side here, which is odd with this kind of total in this park. But are you looking at stacking here?
No, not really planning on it. Just not a very appealing park, not super appealing price tags. I think that Kyle Schwarber leading off at a reduced price tag, still 3,900 on DraftKings, is pretty appealing. Victor Caratini, if he's in the lineup, gives you a pretty cheap catcher option that should be hitting towards the middle of the order. But as far as stacks go, just not really interested in either side because I do think Williams is a good enough pitcher at getting outs that I don't see myself prioritizing the Cubs bats here.
Yeah, fair enough. And then same thing for the Pirates. I mean, if Alzolay was going to be super chalk, maybe you make a case to going with some of these Pirates. But right now, if he sticks to this ownership, I don't think he's going to grade out very well for me from an ownership and leverage perspective, this Pirates stack. So this game should be an interesting one. We'll see how Alzolay's ownership changes, if any, throughout the day. Next game, we'll go to Milwaukee and Cincinnati. We've got Adrian Hauser going up against Tyler Mahle. 5 implied total for the Brewers. Actually, 5.1 for the Brewers. 5 flat for the Reds here. Another one where we don't see very quality pitching options here. Hauser, 5,800. Mahle, 7,500. I think Mahle's a little bit overpriced, but what do you think against all this Brewers power, Adam?
It'll partly depend on what the Brewers lineup is. Tyler Mahle, I think, is a talented pitcher, and he's a lot better against righties than lefties. Travis Shaw obviously is in the minors, so you're going to get a right-handed bat there with Keston Hiura. You could get Tyler Saladino in the lineup as another right-handed bat. There's a chance that you get 5 or maybe, if the lineup's a little bit weird, 6 right-handed bats. That would bump Mahle a little bit for me, but overall, I'm still just not really that interested in this particular matchup because it is most likely a lot of left-handed power. It is Cincinnati. Home runs obviously play up. So talent-wise, I think that Mahle's good. It's just that I don't see myself really getting to this spot all that often.
Yeah, high fly ball percentage, 523 xFIP versus lefties, below average K rate against them. So he's kind of kept those splits that we saw last year. I think they're even more pronounced last season. The line drive percentage actually isn't too bad versus lefties, 18.4% for Molly this season. So he's been a little bit better, I think, but still not great versus lefties. And you're going up against Christian Yelich and Moustakis and Eric Thames, Grandal at the top. That's a little bit concerning. So is that kind of a weird price for him? I swear we saw him in like the low 6Ks, and now all of a sudden he's jumped up to 7,500 in a below average matchup.
I think he was priced down for like a Houston matchup or something, but I think his general price point's been in that 7K range.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, 62, 65, a couple 73s in there. So this isn't actually outrageous. He was 72 last start as well against the Angels. So better strikeout matchup than the Angels. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you had to guess where you would be at on him right now, I know it's tough with no exposures or anything right now if you haven't run a crunch, but where would you think you end up on him?
So looking at the pitchers around him, I mean, you have Samardzija, who I think it's obviously a better matchup pitching in San Diego against the almost said the Chargers against the Padres. And then for a little bit more, you get Dylan Bundy pitching in Tampa. That's what really stands out to me is that you have Samardzija against a high strikeout team in a neutral park. You have Bundy against a high strikeout team, or at least middle of the in a very favorable pitcher's park. And then you get Molly against a team that does strike out, but that also has a ton of left-handed power in a great hitter's park. So the park is kind of the big issue for me when I compare him to Bundy and Samardzija. So I would expect that I get him a bit less than those guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Right now, Molly at 6% less ownership than Samardzija, so he is tied for the second highest owned option right now on DraftKings. On Yahoo, let's see where Molly's at.
Also, hang on, ignore the Bundy thing because I forgot DraftKings just has every single Orioles pitcher listed. So I was looking at pitchers around them and Bundy popped up, but I don't think Bundy's actually pitching.
I think, yeah, so that game's next. I was going to ask you if you knew who was pitching, so I kind of hope it's Bundy, but I have no clue. I think Fangraphs has Yacobonis listed as
It's definitely not Bundy. I know that.
Bundy? Okay.
They said they're pushing Bundy to tomorrow.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so ignore that. So I will get more Molly just because Dylan.
Got it. Hauser is $26 on Yahoo, $1 above the minimum. But, I mean, are you a believer in this guy at all? Do you think he's got anything that you could point to and say, yeah, he might be a good play here outside of his price?
I mean, it's mostly his price. He has good numbers as a reliever this year. It's pretty tough to take a whole lot away from that just because it's a totally different environment when you're pitching as a reliever compared to a starter. But I do like the price point. I do like that he threw 64 pitches in his first start, his last time out. And Cincinnati, is a top 10 strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching, and they are below average in terms of production. So you still have the park issue here, but you are getting one of the cheapest pitchers on the slate in a, pretty decent spot and probably throwing like 75, 80 pitches.
Yeah. I would imagine we're going to see quite a few cash options come from this game. I don't know if I would go to Molly in cash at 7,500 on DraftKings, but just looking at some of these prices for guys like Suarez, Winker, if he's leading off, Votto at 4,300, and the high implied totals on both sides, I would think this is going to be a pretty heavily targeted game for cash games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would think Grandal leading off with the platoon advantage in Cincinnati stands out as assuming, if you can afford him as a top catcher option in cash. Suarez is still cheap, righty-righty matchup is, but still a nice price tag there. But Grandal would be the one that really stands out to me.
Yeah, especially with the opportunity cost. I mean, you can pay down at catcher, but you got to pay up somewhere, and you might as well just take the best guy leading off against a guy with issues against lefties. All right, let's go to that Orioles game. Orioles and Tampa. Don't know yet who's going for Baltimore. For Tampa, it's going to be Stanek, and then you said Yarbrough is coming out after him?
Yeah.
Okay. So Yarbrough going to be in long relief. Tampa's a massive favorite right now, minus 238. So Yarbrough, I don't know if we have him in the ownership projections right now because he's not listed as the starter. But when he gets updated, he's going to get a bunch of ownership. Do you have his price handy with you?
Yarbrough,
Yeah.
6,500 on DraftKings.
Wow. So he's priced down even for him in like an average matchup against
Yeah.
Baltimore. Man, he's going to be one of the higher owned pitchers on the slate. I would think that might be a cash option. But what do you have to
Yep.
say about Yarbrough versus your Orioles here?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as cash options go, I think that basically the two different routes that you could go, and it depends on, lineups and what bats you want, would be getting to some Yarbrough plus Samardzija. You could go Yarbrough plus Allen plus Samardzija. I would say that at least earlier, probably the three ways that I would look
Okay.
for cash. But yeah, so I mean, I'm very interested in Yarbrough here. I expect that he will probably be my highest owned pitcher. I have him projected. My baseline stuff has him as one of the highest draw points pitchers, but also, he's just much cheaper than guys like Logan Allen. It's a favorable matchup against the Orioles. They offer you a lot of strikeouts. The highest strikeout percentage against left-handed pitching for their active roster. Only an 80 WRC plus. Yarbrough is, a perfectly fine pitcher. He's not great, but he's, certainly not bad. He's pitching in Tampa, which is beneficial to him. And so he only threw 42 pitches his last time out, but that's deceiving because that was in relief during that 18 inning game against Minnesota. He wasn't intended to pitch. So the last game where he actually was supposed to pitch, he went 6 innings against Oakland. He threw 91 pitches. So I'm not overly concerned about him being limited or anything like that. If he's pitching well, I expect you can get another 80, 90 pitches out of him. So I really have no issues with Yarbrough here.
So the only issue I think with Yarbrough would be the pitch count, or he's jumped around a bunch, 42, then 91, then 42. But you mentioned that was in relief, so that was on the 27th. That was Thursday in the 8 inning game. So I guess he's 1 day short of rest, so maybe he doesn't get to 90, right?
Yeah, but I think I would guess that just kind of turned into his like
Oh, okay.
I don't usually get too caught up in stuff like that because these guys throw one or two bullpens a week in between starts. So there's a good chance that he just threw 40 pitches that day and throw a bullpen.
Yeah, I think regardless, I mean, 6,500, he's going to have a better chance at the win, assuming Stanek gets through the first inning or so. And he doesn't have to go deep to get the win. It's a good strikeout matchup. He can get strikeouts. And it's not like it's not like he pitched 2 days ago or something like that where you have to just guess on his pitch count. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that Yarbrough throws 65 or 70
yeah,
pitches today and included the caveat that it wasn't performance related, I would still roster him at this point.
I think I would too. So do we have any idea who's going for the Orioles? Fangraphs has Yacobonis. I don't know how plausible that is. I'll look and see when the last time he pitched was. Looks like he pitched on the 25th of June, so he would be fully stretched out. Fangraphs usually is guessing days out on this. But if it is Yacobonis, let's see what his price would be. I don't have that pulled up either.
He's 6,400 on DraftKings.
Oh,
I would have no interest there.
Not against Tampa. 5.6 implied total. That's one of the higher ones we've seen in Tampa, I think. Is Tampa one of your favorite stacks tonight?
I mean, yeah. The park is. I really don't like taking teams in bullpen games either. I understand the Orioles bullpen is bad, but you're still just getting fresh pitcher after fresh pitcher throwing like as hard as they can for an inning or two. Yacobonis certainly can get roughed up because he has pretty bad control, but he does actually have pretty good stuff too. So like if you're just asking him to go out there, pitch 2 or 3 innings, go through the lineup once, he can be, relatively successful in that role. And then you have, a bunch of guys that can come in after him. So, I mean, I like Tampa because it's a 5-game slate and they're facing the Orioles and they have power, but the park's not great. And I think people just tend to value bullpen games a little too highly, even against teams with bad bullpens.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like you said, just fresh arm after fresh arm, throwing an inning or two for 9 innings straight. I mean, it's fine when you knock the pitcher out in the 5th inning and you face the bullpen for half the game and you might get the lesser arms. But if they're just going to throw out whatever arm they have fresh for only an inning or two at a time, it's just not as favorable of a spot as the implied total might show. So I like Tampa hitters. I wonder if I'm going to get to the field on them. Right now, it doesn't look like they're overly chalky. On DraftKings, looking like Brandon Lau, and Pham are up there above 20%, but everyone else, actually, yeah, Zunino and Meadows at 18 and 19 too. So they're going to be up there. I saw a few Milwaukee hitters above them in our ownership projections right now. So they should be up there. I mean, they are the second highest implied total for the slate. So it makes sense. Any hitters you want to talk about or you want to spotlight here?
Yeah, so I mean, Tampa Bay in general is really affordable too, which I'm sure it makes them more appealing, but it also contributes to their ownership. One guy that really stands out though is Austin Meadows on Yahoo is only $13.
Nice.
That's a really, really good price tag on Meadows. Not that he's, overpriced on other sites because he's good, but $13 is just really cheap.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird price. I guess his production hasn't been great as of late. He hasn't been hitting the home runs lately. Actually, hasn't hit a home run in a month, which is weird. But yeah, I mean, he's a really good hitter and probably going to be in a favorable matchup against Yacobonis if it is him or whoever goes for the Orioles. So yeah, I think Tampa's a fine spot. I just wonder if they're going to go over owned because like they're good values, like you said, but are they really like what are they getting you up to? Like, are they just getting you up to Logan Allen, I don't think we're wild about. I think he's a fine play, but if everyone's going to pay up and these expensive pitchers today are going to be popular because of this Tampa stack, I'd probably like to go a different way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. On this slate, because of the pitching, salary to actually matter all that much, especially as far as like hitting goes. I think that because there's just not a lot of opportunity cost at the top. So if there are expensive bats that you like and you have to drop down to two cheap pitchers, you're not really costing yourself all that much. So I don't think that, a stack being cheap, it means that they're going to show up in the optimizers more because the optimizer is going to really value Logan Allen being projected for 1.5 points more than some cheaper guy. But as far as range of outcomes goes, you're not getting yourself that much of an advantage by taking that roster construction. Whereas on slates that have like a Justin Verlander or someone at the top, his ceiling is just higher than everyone on the slate, and so you are getting an advantage by getting them.
Yeah, makes sense. Any Baltimore hitters quick before moving on?
I mean,
Mancini.
Mancini's
Yeah.
affordable, I guess, but it's not really that appealing because his first at bat's going to be against Ryan Stanek, so that's probably a strikeout. And then he has to the entire time through the order to get to Yarborough. Yeah, nothing that stands out.
Yeah, I rarely target against these Tampa games since the start of last season, right when they started doing it. It's just not super favorable, and you're seeing it in the implied total, plus you add in the park and the fact that Baltimore is not really a great team. Don't ever want to cross a team off on a 5-game slate, but they're probably going to be pretty easily my lowest exposed team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, them and San Francisco would be the two teams that I'm just like, I can't really make a strong argument outside of there's 10 teams on the slate.
Or just pure leverage if Yarbrough
Right.
and Allen are super
And
chalky.
Allen, yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go to the Angels and the Rangers. Jose Suarez going up against Mike Minor. We have a 4.9 implied total for the Angels, 5.7 for the Rangers. It is hot in Texas, 86 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing in. That does not really matter in Texas Stadium. Super expensive Mike Minor here at 10.5. Can you make a case for him going up against the Angels in a bad park and seemingly the 100th straight bad matchup in a row for Minor? Can you make a case for him here outside of him just being maybe the most talented pitcher on the slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the case for him. It's just that he's the most talented pitcher on the slate. There's not that many guys that he has to beat to be a good play is like the other argument. Logan Allen is cheaper, but he's in the same price range. So like if Minor beats Allen by a couple of points, that's perfectly fine. And it's not like Allen has a great strikeout matchup either, although he's facing a much worse team in a better pitcher's park, obviously. And that's why he's going to project a little bit better. But if you're going to get really low ownership on Minor, I don't mind getting him in tournaments, but still just not a priority because the Angels do strike out so little because this park is so good for hitters and also because the Angels are really, really cheap. So I think that I'll end up getting two more Angels bets.
Yeah, so you've got Gallo at 5,500, Santana at 5,400 if they go 2-4. But then everyone else is really affordable. Andrews 46, You've got Willie Calhoun in the 5 spot, possibly at 4,200. As Drew Bull got scratched yesterday, who knows if he's going to be in the lineup. But yeah, I think Texas is probably my favorite spot of the night right now. And Miner's just been so good. Like, he just keeps getting the results. Maybe he's overperforming a little bit, but he's done it in tough matchups, and he's just coming off another complete game with 7 strikeouts. It was against Detroit, but still, he's just doing it against everyone. So, and he's probably got the longest leash of anyone on the slate. So, point per inning, he's probably not going to grade out that well, point per dollar value or anything. But if he's going to be 10% while Logan Allen's going to be pushing 40, then I would be overweight on Miner for sure in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned Texas bats. You love them here, I'm guessing, against Suarez. Any particular reason or just the park? Do you think Suarez is bad?
I'm actually kind of interested. I'm trying to get his numbers up. I'm kind of interested in Suarez if Texas picks up ownership. He is a legitimate prospect, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so I mean, according to FanGraphs, I don't have the updated rankings up, but according to FanGraphs, he's the Angels' number 3 prospect. He's the overall number 87 prospect in baseball. He's only 21, so he is an actual prospect. He made 17 starts at AAA last year. He made 5 starts at AAA this year. Decent numbers there, 3.18 ERA. His xFIP was much higher though. Strikeout percentage is 23%, high walk percentage. So seems like he's not yet, but he probably has decent stuff. We know Texas is a really favorable matchup for left-handed pitching. So if Texas were to get a ton of ownership, I would have a little bit of interest in Suarez. But that the high walk percentage combined with the fact that he's not yet become like a really good strikeout pitcher, and he also had 39.7% fly ball percentage AAA this year. Doesn't look like an extreme ground ball pitcher by any stretch. So all of that kind of works against him here.
Yeah, man. And you just look at how the Rangers have been versus lefties this season. Active roster, 29% K rate, just a 298 on base percentage, 74 WRC plus. I believe that's the worst in the MLB versus lefties. Yeah, I'm not seeing one that's worse than them. I thought they would have a ton more power, like 160 ISO versus lefties this season for the Rangers. I'm not exactly sure why I thought they had a ton of power, but Gallo can hit anyone. Andrews, not a big power guy. DeShields, if he's leading off, that's not great. So huge implied total here for Texas. Maybe I'm starting to rethink this one a little bit, and obviously the projections will tell the story, but they've just been so bad versus lefties.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the Angels bats, even though Miner is obviously better than Suarez, just because they have better hitters, I think, at least in their matchup. I mean, Trout, of course. Ohtani struggles against lefties, but you get Upton with power. You get Simmons that's going to put the ball in play. Pujols is tough to strike out. Like, you have this Angels team that's really difficult to strike out, hitting in extremely favorable hit, just getting more balls in play. So between these two teams, I think I actually prefer the Angels.
All right, interesting. It'll be cool to hear your takes by the time we get to the deeper dive later today. You guys are going to start at 5 Eastern, I'm sure, today. And then live before lock with Josh and myself after that.
Yep.
Alex is going to be on today, right? I think that's
yes.
the plan. Okay, yeah.
Assuming he's back from FSGA.
Yeah, I saw he was having some fun time, judging by his Twitter. All right, let's go to the last game already. If you guys could give us a like before we close this out, that would be great. We'll talk overall cash plays or whatever, kind of our favorite spots right now, hours out from lock once we get through this game. But we've got the Giants and the Padres. Jeff Samardzija going up against Logan Allen. 3.5 implied total for the Giants, 4.5 for the Padres. All right, 44% ownership here for Jeff Samardzija. Are you going to be on that? That just feels terrible to me. Like, the thought of playing chalk Jeff Samardzija when there's 10 teams on the slate. But right now, I think I would be there. So, can you talk me off of it, or are you right there with Samardzija chalk?
I kind of doubt that I get to that much if he's projected that high. I would start to consider, I guess he's projected is Tyler Mahle. I was gonna say I'd start
Yeah.
considering pivoting them. But I think that I would end up getting more like Yarborough and maybe getting some more Alzolay, just because of the ownership. I think it is a good spot because San Diego does have one of the highest strikeout percentages against right-handed pitching. But on the flip side, Samardzija only struck out 20% of right-handed hitters. This park downgrade for Samardzija. Not that San Diego is a great hitter's park, but it's pretty neutral, and it's not San Francisco. He's allowed a 181 expected ISO to righties, so there is some concern because the Padres strike out a lot, but they also have a lot of power in their lineup, and you're bringing in a pitcher in Samardzija that doesn't have elite strikeout stuff. Matchups like this, obviously it can increase the strikeout upside for the pitcher, but it also increases the home run upside for the opposing hitters because they are going to probably put more balls in play. So if he's going to be that popular, I think that I probably come in underweight on him and just get some more Padres bets.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like the right play to play a low strikeout pitcher against a team with power as the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. Like, he's just like, if he was a good pitcher and he was just underpriced here, and it's against, it's a righty going against San Diego, so there's strikeout upside. I mean, sure, but I just don't see any way in which I get to 44% Samardzija right now. I could be wrong. Maybe in Alex's projections, he grades out as by far the best value, and then I might have to eat it by the time we get to lock. But I get it. Padres strike out a ton versus righties, but that doesn't mean that Samardzija is all of a sudden going to be able to miss a ton of bats here. So more on the Padres side. If you are going to a Padres stack, what are kind of your favorite parts of that stack? They're expensive.
Yeah, so I mean, I prefer like mini stacks and one-offs just because of the type of offense that they are. A lot of power, but also a lot of guys that don't really get on base outside of hitting home runs. But Reyes still just stands out as my top guy. I don't know why he stays so cheap. 400 on DraftKings. He's 16 on Yahoo. He just has so much power, and he's affordably priced. Machado and Renfroe, I mean, half this team's listed as questionable right now. But whatever catchers in the lineup, whether it's Mejia or Hedges, they give you some cheap power if you were looking to pay up elsewhere, like Grandal. Renfroe and Machado, of course, are really good hitters, but they're a little bit more expensive. The Reyes would be my number one guy, but behind him, just anyone with power.
Yeah, Reyes, 2 multi-home run games in his last 4, sitting there at 4,400 in a spot where you're going to get leverage off of the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. So really, really like that call from you. Would he be a guy you go to in cash?
Probably
I mean, yeah,
not.
it's tough with the outfielders, and there's just a bunch of
Yeah,
good spots. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, like Meadows, like because you have a bunch of outfielders on Tampa. You have the Shields leading off for a team with a 5.8 implied run total or whatever. You have Gallo if you can afford him. You have Trout, who is like always a priority. You have Yelich in a good
Schwarber,
spot.
Schwarber leading off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Schwarber. Yeah, I doubt that I would get there in cash just because of how many outfielders there are. It's not like if I ended up with $4,400 and could get Reyes, I'd be upset. But it's just that are you really better off in cash taking a $4,400 guy hitting fifth on the team with a 4.5 implied run total, $4,300 guy hitting second on the team with a 5.8 implied run total,
Yeah, exactly.
in like Tommy Pham.
That's a good thought process, I think. All right, so Logan Allen, 9,200. He is tied with Tyler Mahle as the second highest owned pitcher on this slate. Going up against the Giants, what do we do here with Logan Allen? 9,200 on DraftKings. Trying to pull up his FanDuel price. 93 on FanDuel. He's priced up there as well. And then on Yahoo, he is just $39.
Yeah, I mean, a lot will depend on what hitters I'm getting to because I don't have him projected. I have him projected as the top raw scoring pitcher, but it's not by a huge margin. So I am not going to be willing to sacrifice too much in the way of bats. It's a good matchup against Francisco, one of the worst offenses against left-handed pitching. They are in the bottom third of the league in strikeout percentage, so it's not like it's a great matchup there. You're probably going to get around 90 pitches from him. He's at a price point where it's really, really tough for him to be like a must-have outside of every other pitcher on the slate just failing. But based just on his own merit, it's really tough for him to be like a must-have at that price. So he kind of just comes in as I'll get a lot of him just because it's a good spot and because I anticipate having plenty of lineups where I want a pitcher, but it's not like the starting point of my lineup.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up with him as well, just because even if you prioritize hitters, there's only a couple expensive stacks, including the Padres. So I think he's just going to end up there because of the raw points and using less randomness on pitching. So I don't know. I'm fine with it. 3.5 implied total. He's a 161 favorite right now. So there's things to like. He's kind of got the clearest path to success, I think, of maybe any pitcher on the slate outside of Yarbrough. When you look at the implied total and him being a favorite, and the hitting weather here and the hitting environment, and then the opponent as well. Giants with a 76 WRC plus versus lefties this season. So a lot of things adding up here. I think the only reason you're kind of not getting to him is just because of ownership if he gets filtered out for you. But I think that, maybe he ends up as the highest owned pitcher, but it's not going to be by a long shot. Samardzija and Molly's going to be up there. We haven't even accounted for Yarbrough just yet. So I don't know that he's going to be like 50+% and everyone else is going to be below 30 or something like that. So I don't think ownership's going to be an issue here with Logan Allen. So I'm right there with you. What about any bats on the Giants that profile well against Allen here?
Tyler Austin's kind of interesting just because we know that he does have power and he's not going to be popular because he's on the Giants. So he kind of stands out. Buster Posey is the guy that probably ends up getting into more lineups than he should just because he's a good point per dollar play. But I don't really think you need those points per dollar on this particular slate. So he's someone that I would probably be underweight on in tournaments. He's a cash option if paying down at catcher in cash gets you everything else that you want. He's the guy that you should probably go to, but I don't think that'll end up being the best build.
Okay. So if you had to take a couple hitters for cash right now, what are we, 9 hours out from lock almost? If you had to build a cash lineup, who would be a couple hitters that you would want to start your lineups with? We don't talk enough cash, they say.
Yeah, so Grandal, really stands out because of his position in the lineup and the ballpark. Brandon Lau is really cheap, so I think that at second base, like him and Moustakas look good. Obviously, Mike Trout should be a priority. Schwarber, Upton also I think is like a clear outfield play. Yeah. So like he's someone that he'd be my first outfielder in, followed by Trout, and then probably Schwarber. Like that's probably your cash outfield.
Yeah, So I think I agree with everyone there. At first base, it's always tough. Like Votto looks appealing if he's going to start to hit a little bit, but the opportunity cost at first base, where it's usually just a stacked position. So I don't know if I want to pay down for a guy with, you still want some upside in cash, and a couple walks will do the trick. But I don't really love the idea of playing Votto on this slate when you can get some of these other first basemen. You mentioned Trout, Upton. Those are two guys that I wanted to point out, and Schwarber, who I really like at 3,900, 5+ implied total leading off. His price just seems broken when he goes up against a righty. I don't really know what's going on there on DraftKings specifically, but weird stuff there with Schwarber.
Andrelton Simmons too, 3,500 shortstop, probably batting in Texas.
Are you going to play on FanDuel tonight?
It's July 1st, so yeah.
Wait,
new month.
What does that mean?
The reason I don't play on FanDuel that often is because I live in Maryland and I can only deposit $2,500 a month. And I didn't when that went into place. I didn't have like a lot of money on FanDuel because I didn't really play on FanDuel, and so now it's just been like not go bust within the first 5 days of every month with my $2,500.
I did not know that was a rule. You have a deposit limit? Is that statewide? That's a statewide rule?
Yes, it's statewide. On all the sites, it starts at like $1,000. You can ask them to raise it. FanDuel raises it to $2,500. DraftKings raises it to $6K, and then to get it higher than that, you have to like provide documentation that you make like a lot more money than should be necessary to get your deposit limit on a DFS site raised.
Wow, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, so that's why I like barely play FanDuel. Like it's really exciting when I win a tournament there and get like 20 or 30K on there, but then like the swing just always takes it right back to 0.
Jeez. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, you said July 1st. I was like, is there a big tournament that you want a bunch of tickets to or something? But
Yeah, no, I just can actually play. And yeah, I mean, it sucks too because it's not like it's net winnings or anything like that. Like if I put 2,500 on, win 20K, take off 10K, and then lose, 12K or whatever,
yeah.
I'm right back to 0 and I can't put any money back on.
Wow. That just seems like such a weird rule. But
Yeah, I mean, it's state legislation trying to do what they think's right, but not understanding what they're doing.
yeah. I guess maybe just to protect people so they don't lose their ass, but
Yeah,
still.
I mean, that's what it is. But to me, the dumbest part of it, like, is just not having it be a net thing where, like if I need money on DraftKings, I can't move it from FanDuel because then I can't get it back on FanDuel.
Yeah. Man, I never knew that. So interesting. I hope Minnesota doesn't have any rules like that. They could be, but I don't think I'd deposit 2,500 at a time really ever. So I guess you just have to leave all your money basically on the sites then,
On
just on
FanDuel in
FanDuel.
particular, yeah.
Okay. Wow, that sucks. All right. Well, anyways, you can always play on Yahoo. You can play on Yahoo in Maryland, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
same the thing, but yeah.
Yeah. So there's this rake free tournament, management free tournament. Actually, not rake free. They call it management fee on Yahoo is 0%. You're not going to find a better tournament anywhere throughout the industry. $3 entry fee, $4,500 prize pool. Again, 0% management fee. There are about 165 entries remaining. So get your 1 in there, get your 10 in there. You can multi-enter it. Just have to hand build. So it's not as appealing to a lot of sharks. It's more appealing to casual players and lower stakes players, which I know a bunch of people watching this are. So even if you play on DraftKings and FanDuel, your first few $100s should be going to Yahoo, where there's just less of a management fee. You're just playing more expected value tournaments, positive expected value tournaments in the long run. That's going to help your ROI. All right. Anything else on this slate you want to talk about before we wrap this up? I'm trying to see if we can stretch it out, but I don't even think we're going to get to 50 minutes here unless you got anything else, Adam.
No, I think that's it. So I mean, just kind of an overarching general like strategy idea is that on shorter slates, you probably should be, more willing to take risks, but also just kind of factoring in ownership a little bit more. Just because like on a 15 game slate, team A being the highest owned stack versus team C, it's probably not going to be by that big of a margin because ownership just gets spread out. Whereas on a slate like this, you're naturally going to get more concentrated ownership because there's fewer spots to go to. So just, if you on the smaller slates, I think being willing to be contrarian and take some stands and risks is probably where you need to be.
All right. Way to sum it up. We will have the deeper dive coming out the deep dive will come out this afternoon. Lofty will be writing that, breaking down all his favorite plays from the 5-game slate, hitting and pitching. There will be a very detailed article for each pitcher, I would assume, and then we'll have cheat sheets out. Spotlight hitters and pitchers are also out. As far as shows go, we've got the deeper dive coming out at 5 Eastern. You're not going to find a better trio. It's Adam, it's Alex, Osimo Baker, and then Laffy will be hosting it. So those guys do a really good job. You'll want to tune into that one once we get a better feel on how guys are projecting as well as ownership. And then Josh and I will be doing live before lock. You'll watch us make our lineups, and hopefully we'll get them in on time with no issues this time. So good luck tonight, guys, and we will see you later.